Okay, let's pull back the curtain on this AI boom we're all living through. I mean, it's a technology that's changing our world at a wild speed. But it turns out it comes with some massive hidden costs, costs that almost nobody is talking about. So let's get right into it.
You know, when you use something like ChatGPT, it's pretty incredible, right? You type in a question and boom, a smart, well-written answer just appears. It feels totally seamless, so powerful. It really does feel kind of like magic.
But just like any good magic trick, there's a whole lot happening behind the scenes that you're not meant to see. So that raises the big question. What is the real price of this AI revolution? Well, as we're about to find out, there are 3 major price tags attached.
Let's kick things off with the one that hits closest to home for all of us, your own personal finances. It turns out this AI boom is already having a direct and pretty significant impact on your monthly bills. So just take a look at this. Since 2019, we all know inflation has been tough, up 29%. But your electricity costs, they've skyrocketed by a staggering 42%. That's a huge difference, and it's putting a real squeeze on household budgets. So what in the world is driving this spike?
Well, here's the main culprit: the explosive growth of these things. Massive, incredibly power-hungry AI data centers. See, to train and run these AI models, companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are building these giant warehouses just packed with computer chips that consume an insane amount of electricity, and it's pushing our power grids to the absolute brink.
And this leads us to what some researchers from places like Harvard Law are calling the ratepayer scam. Here's the deal. To power all those new data centers, utility companies have to spend billions on new power plants and grid upgrades. But instead of the trillion-dollar tech companies footing that bill, these monopolistic utilities are just passing those costs directly on to, well, you, to the regular residential customer.
And if you want to see just how serious this is, just look at Virginia. Dominion Energy, the big utility there, has basically said that to keep up with data center demand, they're going to need to spend over $100 billion. The potential outcome for residents? Their electricity bills could jump by as much as 50%. But the costs don't just stop with your wallet. The second major price tag is the environmental toll of this AI gold rush. And it starts with one of our most precious resources, water.
I mean, this chart just lays out the staggering scale of the problem. In 2023, data centers drank up 175 billion liters of water, mostly for cooling their servers. By 2030, that number is projected to more than triple. And guess what's driving most of that increase? You got it, the massive water demand from these new AI-specific data centers.
And you know what's even crazier? Where they're building these things. To reduce the risk of corrosion on their equipment, tech companies are deliberately putting these incredibly thirsty facilities in places that are already facing extreme droughts, like the deserts of Arizona, where every single drop of water is absolutely critical.
And getting a straight answer about it? Good luck. A leaked internal memo from Amazon actually revealed that their own executives predicted this exact negative headline. So they strategized about how to keep their full water usage a secret from the public, deciding to only report partial numbers to, minimize the bad press.
The story is exactly the same when you look at electricity. This chart shows the demand from just the AI-specific data centers, and the growth is just exponential. By 2030, AI data centers alone are on track to consume as much electricity as all other types of data centers combined do today.
So this insatiable hunger for power is creating a direct clash with climate goals. You hear all these big tech companies making pledges about being carbon neutral, but the reality on the ground tells a very different story. Take Nebraska, for example. A utility company there literally had to postpone shutting down 2 coal-fired power plants and build new natural gas plants, all for one reason: to power a new metadata campus. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most profound hidden cost of AI. Because behind all the slick algorithms and the promises of automation, there is a vast, invisible, and deeply exploited global workforce. Would you believe that some of the workers who actually make machine learning possible, the people who sit there and manually label all the images and text that train these AI models, are earning as little as $1 an hour? But it's not even just about the shockingly low pay. We're talking about millions of these data labelers, mostly in countries like Kenya and the Philippines, who are working with zero job security or benefits. They're under constant surveillance, and many suffer severe psychological trauma, actual PTSD, from being forced to review graphic and disturbing content all day. And for those labeling data for self-driving cars, one tiny mistake could have fatal consequences.
It's a system that some have started calling a new form of digital labor extraction.
And that really brings us to this deeply troubling irony. The very AI systems being designed to recognize and respond to human suffering are often built directly on the suffering of the invisible workers who are creating those datasets.
So, let's tally it all up. When we really pull back the curtain on this AI magic trick, who is actually paying the price for all of it?
Well, it breaks down pretty clearly, doesn't it? The financial costs are being passed on to utility ratepayers, people like you. The environmental costs are being shouldered by local communities, especially those in drought-stricken areas, and really the planet as a whole. And the human cost? That's carried by an invisible global workforce.
And that leaves us with one final essential question. As these trillion-dollar tech companies are in this frantic race to dominate the next frontier of technology, should ordinary citizens and communities really be the ones forced to subsidize the true financial, environmental, and human costs? The answer to that is going to define a lot more than just the future of technology.